You take a look at employment staying under 3%. Does that tell you that there's a bit of buffer that the Bank of Korea is operating with, that there's more resilience to rising rates and rising inflation?
Yes, today's labor market unemployment rate came at 2.59%, which is a bit higher than the market consensus. However, below 3% means that the Korean labor market is resilient, and also that probably could more give BOK to make their decision, and also that shows that the relatively healthy domestic demand conditions.
What are the biggest concerns when it comes to the weak points in the economy for the Bank of Korea, though, in terms of how potentially well entrenched that these inflation expectations might already be?
Yes, actually, last month, consumer sentiment index showed that some softening, very rapid softening of consumer confidence, and also very rapid rising in inflation expectations. And also, last month, the CPI hit a 6%. So probably it is the most concern of the BOK at this moment. However, other hard activity data shows that the more of the consumption on services staying very relatively healthy, and also some pickup in investment activities as well. So probably that gives the BOK give more their priority of policy to contain the high inflation at this point.
Minju, we have such a weak Korean won right now. I didn't expect it to really surpass that 1,300 level for the first time since, 2009 or so. Weak Korean won helps exports, which is the biggest driver for the economy in South Korea, but at the same time really pushes those inflation concerns. So is it a net positive or a net negative here?
Actually, at this point, probably is a bit negative on Korean economy, because it is pushing more upward on the inflation, and giving higher upward pressures on domestic price pressures. However, that, like you mentioned, that it is also good for the Korean exporters. But at this point, the Korea trade balance, we have been seeing a series of deficit, which is very unusual in Korean trade. But it is not because of the Korean export is weak. It's because the imports grow more rapidly than the export. And it is mainly due to the higher commodity prices. And we think that this trend will continue for a while until that, the global commodity price come down meaningfully. And the thing is that, I think, still the Korean exporters are having some benefit from the high currency. However, actually, at this point, the BOK's concern is more on the inflation side. So probably we think that it's a little bit negative on.
Tell us a little bit more about that, about the BOK, especially the new governor Lee Chang-yong's policy leanings at this point.
Actually, Governor Lee Chang-yong is very clear that the Bank of Korea's main mandate is inflation targeting. So, and now we are seeing 6% of inflation. Then they have, and also the Korean growth is staying relatively healthy, based on the reopening effect and also very expansionary fiscal policy. So the BOK will take a more the policy priority on the price stabilization.
When it comes to the domestic economy right now, how bad is household debt? Because, of course, that was one of the key concerns when it comes to South Korea, not to mention the really hot property prices that we've seen recently. Key concerns that have been sort of perennial issues for the economy.
Actually, yes, that is true that, the recent couple of years, the household debt growth was way faster than the nominal GDP growth. So it is a concern for the policymakers. And now what we are seeing from the beginning of this year, we are seeing some stabilization of a housing market. It is partially due to the very tight credit conditions that imposed by the previous government and this government, and also the mortgage rate has been raised from 3% level to 6% level, so which probably have some impact on the cooling down the real estate market. And also more concern is that not the level of the household debt. The thing is that the majority of more than 90%, 80% of household debt is in floating rate. So which means that given this higher rate environment will increase the debt service burden for the household in coming months.
Does that, I was going to say, does that mean that there's a heightened risk of a messy, accelerated deleveraging?
But at the same time, the government is trying to do some...
I'm sorry to interrupt right now, but we're actually getting the Bank of Korea's rate decision, and it's an increase to 2.25%. So as expected, we're talking about a 50 basis point rate hike, which 15 of 19 economists surveyed by Bloomberg had expected. So we are talking about the largest increase since the Bank of Korea started using the interest rate as a primary policy tool back in 1999. So that Bank of Korea now raising the rate to 2.25%. So Min-Joo, going back to you, just give us a reaction of this rate hike and what can we expect in the subsequent policy meetings now that we have this 50 basis point outsized hike?
Yes, just announced like a first time ever 50 basis point hike rate decision of the BOK's history, and which shows that BOK's strong policy commitment to price stabilization. At the same time, the BOK sends a strong signal to the market that it is willing to do their best to meet their inflation target mandate. Actually, today's decision, like you mentioned, that it was in line with the market consensus. However, but the market will be closely watching what the Governor Lee Chang-yong has to say at the press conference, and wondering whether today's decision was unanimous or there was a couple of dissent against vote, because this could hint at the BOK's next move in coming months.
Yeah.
And we believe that 2.25% rate is so-called a neutral rate, and then probably from now on the BOK going to be more cautious and adjust their pace of rate hikes. That's why we believe that the BOK will return to normal rate hike of 25 basis points in August and October.
Right.
And we believe that the terminal rate will reach 2.75% at this rate hike cycle. However, this rapid rate hikes in this year probably have negative impact on next year's growth.
Okay.
Then the BOK will probably be enter into an easing cycle by the end of next year.